Hello and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, the Information and Technology Ministry has recently framed new guidelines for digital media, and that has caused its own furor. According to the ministry, these guidelines are actually to ensure this, a more safer conversation on social media. They are saying is to make sure that crimes against women, we've seen the heckling and the trolling that takes place. That doesn't to ensure that that is curbed, and also to take care of offences related to the sovereignty and security of the country. Now, that of course is really the problematic word, rather, because who decides what is affecting the sovereignty and security of the country? The problem also is that, according to the new rules, the social media platforms, which includes WhatsApp, Twitter, and Facebook, will have to identify the originator of a message that has gone viral or some tweet that they find offensive. This, of course, the social media, the OTT platform said this is violating the privacy issue. The privacy protocol. In fact, WhatsApp has also moved court against it. For a more detailed explanation and an analysis of these new rules, I'm joined on the roundtable by Dr. Jayajit Bhattacharya. He is the president of the Center for Digital Economy Policy Research. Pranjal Sharma, he's an economic analyst and an author who focuses on technology, globalization, and the media. He's also written a book, India Automated, recently. Dilip Cherian, he's an image guru, political and commentator and columnist. And Nikhil Pava, he's a digital right activist, founder of Media Nama, which is a digital and a mobile portal, news portal. Jayajit, I'll begin with you. Can you just quickly walk us through what the guidelines are really, and why is Twitter and WhatsApp so upset with it?
So, the guidelines came out much earlier, and it essentially says what are the do's and don'ts for a social media intermediary. Now, I don't need to define social media, all of us understand, but I think we need to understand what an intermediary is. An intermediary is any platform which just provides a platform and does not curate the information or does not add anything to the platform. For example, if you look at, let's say, Amazon, it simply allows people to put in the products and sends it out and ships it out. Now, the day it says that, no, I'll define what all goes into that platform and what goods get shipped out, it starts becoming an intermediary. Similarly, in social media, if the platform starts curating the information coming on the platform, then it starts becoming an intermediary. And therefore, what the government is saying is that there are intermediaries who need to be given a safeguard, that they are not liable for information being put onto their platform. However, if that information is against the law of the land, then the government will instruct such social media intermediaries to remove that information or that post, and they should comply with it within the next 36 hours. Similarly, they've also defined what is a significant social media intermediary, that is a social media intermediary which has a certain threshold. And they have a few more responsibilities, such as appointing a chief compliance officer to cause the compliance with IT Act, and appointing a grievance officer residing in India, publishing a monthly compliance report, and so on and so forth. What they've also said is that, therefore, those who don't fall into this category, I mean, there is also a dimension of the streaming media, but I'm skipping it in the interest of time. But the more important point is that therefore, there is a liability on those who are not classified as intermediaries to be completely responsible for every other post on their platform. So they cannot be choosy, they cannot have all the power and no responsibility. If they're exercising power in banning people, in deleting posts, and so on and so forth, then they must have the responsibility for all posts and all people on that platform. And that is essentially the essence and crux of the law that is coming in.
Okay, thank you for that. Dilip, there's also, at a time, both WhatsApp and Twitter very cleverly made it into a privacy and freedom of speech issue. At a time when India has already been censured outside for, curbs on freedom of speech, this is really a hot potato on our laps, or is it?
We always have the China or Russia option and can close off in the interests of security, privacy, whatever it is. Okay? But in a world that India wants to occupy, at least in a world that India is seeking to occupy, I think that the real cause for concern is how much is government intervening on a regular basis, and how much is that impinging on a citizen's right to either privacy or the right for expression. Now, I'm with the theme that as far as security is concerned, India is probably more under threat than several other jurisdictions may be. So we really need to have much greater caution because the enemy is not just without, but the enemy is also within, and therefore, whether the police forces need a heavier hand or not is something that needs to be considered. But as a country that sees itself as free, a people who see themselves as expressive, and as an economy which depends a lot on burgeoning new talent wanting to do things very fast, which may or may not be impeded by privacy, but eventually everything gets affected by the ecosystem in which they are functioning. I'll stop now because I think there are more points, but we can develop those later.
Okay, thanks. Pranjal, your first take on the new rules. I've been reading your articles, of course.
So, Priya, I think we have to look at this in context. It's not just about the new rules. You have to look at it in the context of how global giants are behaving with sovereign nations across the world. That's point one. Point two is, as Dilip mentioned, if Russia and China is out, which is the biggest market in the world for them? It's India. 1.4 billion people, out of which a small percentage is on social media networks. But look at the vast headroom. Where can they grow? Not in Europe, not in US. This is their holy grail right now because this is the educated, paying, rich country where they can expand and extract the most. Third point is, until the government forced them, companies like Twitter and WhatsApp specifically did not even feel it fit to incorporate themselves in India. They were operating in India without a legal presence in the country. You take that forward and then see that in the garb of freedom of expression, they are again trying to intimidate and define the rules which should govern civil discourse in India. I think the fact that the government gave them time to comply, they should have taken steps to follow the intermediary rules. Of course, India has faltered in the sense that we don't still have our own strict privacy laws. And I think that is something which is putting the government of India and our country on the back foot. But the fact is that if you look at the overall context and the intent of these companies, I would treat them with a lot of circumspection.
Nikhil, I saw you shaking your head.
I just wanted to just fact check something that Pranjal said. Google India, from what I remember, and I've been covering this space for a very long time, was incorporated in 2006.
I refer to WhatsApp, Nikhil.
Sure. So, but WhatsApp, in terms of WhatsApp, I'm not sure when it was incorporated, but I think it was about 2014-15 that it was incorporated. Many
only
of these
after
companies have. So, I'm sorry, only after?
It was forced. There was a rule where the government said that all these companies should have legal presence and place of effective management. So it was only after that it
WhatsApp India at that point
people were identified.
WhatsApp India at that point in time was already acquired by Facebook and was being managed through Facebook India Private Limited. But you're right, it incorporated much later, and that's true of many global businesses. These are companies through the internet that can operate in many parts of the world. That can operate in many parts of the world, and many of them don't take on the expense of having to incorporate in every country in the world. And I think that's the nature of the internet, that you can basically have customers anywhere in the world. And if you're not in supportive of internationalism, you can say that they need to incorporate everywhere. But for many, then that will just restrict the availability of those services. It's going to restrict, for example, the availability of Indian companies across the globe. For example, Wingify is a company that I've known since 2006, and it was operating across the world, just out of India. They didn't have offices everywhere in the world. So I think this requirement to have to register in every country is not a realistic one. Sure, we should want them to register here, but I think it shouldn't be mandated, because if every platform across the world had to register in every country, then they would choose some countries not to operate in, and this would be harmful for Indian businesses as well if such a provision came about. But onto the rules, I think it's important to remember that that this discussion about intermediaries is really old. It's been there since 2004, 2005. In 2006, Avnish Bajaj got arrested because someone had put a pornographic clip on Bazi.com, or eBay as it had become after that. And Avnish had come to Delhi, and he was arrested at Delhi airport by Delhi police for something that he had no role in. And it's important that we should retain safe harbor provisions and protections for intermediaries, because these are the platforms that we use to communicate. What's happened right now with these rules, since these rules have come into effect 2 days ago, that many of these platforms are not compliant with it. And for an entity like WhatsApp to re-architect its entire platform globally in the space of 3 months is an unrealistic proposition. But they're non-compliant right now, and therefore they could be potentially liable for every message that is sent on it. No platform can survive this liability. If YouTube isn't compliant, there are over a billion hours of video on YouTube. It can't survive that liability. So we need to protect platforms that enable our speech, to protect our freedom of speech as well. And this has been recognized in courts too. In terms of how some of these intermediaries or these issues work, if, for example, they use artificial intelligence to promote certain messages because they feel like you might want to read them, there is a thought that they should be liable for that. On Twitter, especially, if it is like Jayjeet had mentioned, if they censor some content or they remove certain accounts, now that's something which the law allows them to do. And if they are not allowed to do those, then it will also affect similar platforms that focus on a particular niche. So, for example, if I'm let's say if I'm the fan of the Indian cricket team, and there is a forum, and then a Pakistani cricket fan comes and starts abusing Indian cricketers on that forum, I should have the right to remove it. So when we look at the way these intermediaries work, and I know it's important because they are private platforms performing a public function, we also have to realize that they need to have the ability to curate for how they want their community to behave. We are on their platform. It's not the Indian. It's not the nation's platform. It's not America's platform. So we have to be very conscious about how user experience will get shifted if we start imposing certain rules and guidelines on them. That is not to say that there shouldn't be rules and guidelines to protect Indian citizens. I think that's really important. One of the reasons why Twitter came into the limelight was because it added the manipulated media tag. Now, under law, there is nothing that prevents them from doing this. But under law, also nothing prevents them from removing it also. As a user, what I want from Twitter is transparency. How did they put this tag? On what basis did they put this tag? And I think it's right to demand transparency, but to say that, or to threaten them, I think is uncalled for, because it's their platform. And if you want to change it, then change the law. The IT rules that have come out, which require WhatsApp to put in traceability, which requires streaming services to put on an entire grievance redressal mechanism, news entities to create a grievance redressal mechanism, these are all things which a country can put in. And there's no doubt that they can pass laws to put this in. But the problem, Priya, here is there is no law which allows them to do it. The IT rules have gone beyond the ambit of the IT Act. And that's what WhatsApp is also challenging in court. And that's also, I hope, and in fact, most news publishers, many, whether it's Live Law, whether it is Dhanya Rajendran and DigiPub, they're all challenging these rules because they've gone beyond the ambit of the Act. And effectively, the Indian government has bypassed the role of Parliament. It's a disrespect to Parliament that they haven't taken these amendments to the IT Act to Parliament for them to be passed. Instead, they've used rules to create these new norms, which the law doesn't allow them to create. And I think that, from a democracy perspective, is a very dangerous thing to happen.
We're here discussing the new IT rules that have been brought in, especially with regard to WhatsApp and Twitter. Jayjeet, I am also a little worried, the timing, when the social media suited the government, this is a government that came to power literally on the back of social media. They were fine with it. Now that is becoming a little critical. You're coming up with these rules. All said and done, there are ways of handling that manipulated media tag. You could have asked for transparency and not come down with a sledgehammer.
Sure. I think we should not look at everything from a political perspective. Otherwise, it gets clouded. I mean,
We are living in India.
Twitter,
We have to do that.
should Twitter have banned Trump or not? That's a question mark, because the point is, well, you are free to ban one person, and as Nikhil was saying, there's nothing in the law that stops him. For that matter, there's nothing in the law that says you can ban or not ban anybody. It's your free platform. You are a private enterprise. You can do whatever you want. But the point is, once you do something, you will be looked at in a very, very different way, depending on what actions you follow. I mean, I can't be an airline and say I won't take passengers or throw passengers out of the window. That's not acceptable. And that's exactly what's happening. I'll throw certain people out of my platform, and saying that it's a private enterprise and government doesn't have a role to play. What has happened is that digital monopolies have become extremely large, and you don't have an alternative to it. And therefore, these are actually utilities. These are national utilities. Can we say that BSNL and Airtel and Jio should not be under any regulation? They are heavily regulated. And the reason being that these are national utilities. Similarly, when an enterprise becomes a national utility, there is a national discourse which is important, which goes on that enterprise, on that platform. It is important that there are transparency as to how that platform is operating. They cannot say off with the head here and off with the head there. If you're doing that, please publish that. In fact, that was what the police was investigating, that if you have tagged something as manipulative, please share the information, because the law of the land has to take course and take due cognizance and mete out the punishment due to whoever had put in manipulated messages. And therefore, that information needs to be shared. The response from Twitter has been, no, the entire world and the social sector is against the government. That's not a response that is expected from a CEO against a very simple request that please share under what basis you've called something manipulative, so that the law of the land can take place. And those are the issues, Priya, that we are debating. Just one more little fact correction. Avnish Bajaj was not arrested in 2006. He was actually arrested in 2004. Not that it has any material implication, but in the correctness of all facts, we need to make that sure that is correctly presented.
Sure. Dilip, I know Pranjal and Nikhil, you both want to comment, but I'll get Dilip in first.
My take is that, as I said, privacy laws are something that this country, and Pranjal has also mentioned that should be the fundamental basis on which this happens. That has to be followed by having rules and regulations which come out of an act and not out of just a regulation on its own. These are two basic issues. But I think that, we need to look at these companies almost like they're sovereign nations. These companies have a dynamic of their own. And as customers, we have a choice whether to use platform A or platform B. And that is a choice that we as customers, citizens, consumers ought to. I like the idea that Jaideep made of wanting to treat them as utilities, but then we need to recognize that just as they have duties, they would then also be in their rights to also demand certain facilities which go with a utility. For example, a public utility like a milk service will demand a booth in every market. So I'm just saying, if there is a utility, then there are things that will have to be provided to them, even if they are as a private corporation. The fourth thing I'd like to make, the point I'd like to make is that being political about these things actually takes us in the wrong direction. We need to look at surveillance capitalism in its fullest form. And, for example, a constant guest on your shows, Priya, a Supreme Court lawyer, Sanjay Hegde, has been blocked by Twitter. Now, I don't think that anyone has yet asked Twitter why I think he's gone to court, but other than that, there has been no real investigation as to why a person was blocked. Is the platform within its rights, as Nikhil said, within its rights to curate content in a way that makes sure that it gets its largest customer base happy? And the last point I'll make is that while India is a huge country and we need to look at the fact that we have X billion people waiting to climb onto these platforms, most of these platforms has so far seen that India is a market of minuscule returns or negative returns largely. Numbers, yes. Revenues, no. I'll stop here.
Quite a statement, Dilip. Pranjal, do you wanted to comment?
Yes, the interesting thing is just a short point on what you said about political, color. The fact that Twitter was visited by the police was not because the government filed a case or the ruling party. It was the opposition party which filed a case on this tag of manipulated media. So it was to investigate that the police went, not because the government or the BJP did it. Congress filed the FIR, and therefore it had to go. That's one point. Let's look at two quick industries. The food industry, for example. Global 6 or 7 global MNCs control the processed food market. Do they decide in every country what is healthy for us? Or do the national laws of the country by bodies like FDA decide what is healthy for us? Do they give the food certification? Who gives the food certification? Is it given by the Nestle's of the world, or is it given by the food and drug administrations of every country? Same rules should apply to the global media giants. They cannot decide. Every sovereign country has the right to set the rules for it. Let's look at the telecom sector. You remember, Priya, when mobiles, industry exploded, there was a while where government started saying to get a SIM card, you got to register with your ID. You remember the furor? Every big company said, no, it's a huge effort for us. We'll have a cost implication. Rural people don't have IDs, they don't have fingerprints, they don't have this, they don't have that. But what happened? They had to do it. Isn't the country a better place because of that? They said, we don't have the technology. How can 1 billion people be registered? How can we save their data? They were forced, they did it, and country is a better place for it. So to say that these companies should not be forced to follow the rules.
But then they're not controlling a conversation on the mobiles. They're just saying Twitter has a blue tick. You identify who's on it, but the conversation is not being controlled by the mobile companies.
That's a great point, Priya. Let me answer that. If today the government or anybody wants to know about a phone tap, there is a due process which they will follow. For a message or SMS which is created, there's a due process which should be followed. These companies follow it. They do not want to accept the same rules which apply to the internet and the social media giants. They are not explaining themselves on what basis something is good or bad.
Okay.
But there are 2 points I'd like to intervene on. One is that we saw during the so-called murder trial of that actor, or suicide or whatever it was, how much of WhatsApp was in the public domain, how many exchanges became public domain. And the second thing is on the food industry, remember that polyunsaturated fats have been declared a public health threat. For 10 years, no government in the world, including the FDA, was able to ban it because the cost on those companies would be far too high. When they finally took on scientific evidence that this was an extremely harmful food product or a basis on which foods were actually cooked, they gave the companies another 4 years to comply with the new regulation, which was killing people, according to all the medical fraternity. So that's something to keep in mind, because the scale of what we are talking about is huge,
Okay, Nikhil, yeah.
So Priya, I have no doubt that the power of these platforms needs to be controlled. It needs to be reduced because of the impact that they can have on our democracies and because of the impact that they have had on democracies across the world. The way we need to approach it is that in a systematic manner, we need to identify the sources of their power, whether it is the algorithms that they use, whether it is the size that they have, whether it is their ability to censor content. And we need to have conversations on them from an antitrust, from a content regulation, from a multiple perspectives, right? But it needs to be a nuanced debate. It needs to be multiple conversations. And we need to bring about norms that will prevent harms and yet not stifle innovation and not stifle growth for any platform. On this idea of treating them as public utilities, there's a problem there. You can't equate them to telecom because telecoms use scarce resources. And I actually debated all of this during the net neutrality campaign. Telecoms use scarce resources in terms of spectrum, and they are licensed. which means you have an exclusivity, and then you abide by certain norms because of that exclusivity. You treat them as public carriers in a way. The same thing cannot apply to social media because the barrier to entry is really low. Unless you want to introduce a licensing regime for social media, in which case you will only cement their position in this space, and it will stifle competition from Indian players, for example, right? So I think we need to take a different approach. Public utilities is not the right approach to do it. The other thing that I wanted to also talk about is specifically with respect to WhatsApp and this requirement of identifying the originator of a message. One of the challenges that I see over there is the fact that you are basically, for a company that's been in the line of fire for trying to share data with Facebook, this mechanism is basically force WhatsApp to tag every message with the details of the originator of the message, right? When that happens, you're basically making WhatsApp or giving WhatsApp the opportunity to collect more data, not less. The other thing is that there will be a problem because it will have to re-architect its entire platform to remove end-to-end encryption, because these norms are not in line with the top global encryption standards. When that happens, you basically end up with a situation where you're reducing privacy for everyone because you want to collect data on everyone to be able to identify the originator of a few messages.
Okay.
When this goes to the Supreme Court and we have the right to privacy judgment to draw from, there's a question of proportionality. And I think the courts will have to decide whether it is proportionate to collect data on everyone to basically have a platform snoop on everyone to be able to identify a few. Now, not an easy situation, but I think it's best that these debates are left to court, because one, it needs to be lawful, it has to be backed by law. Second, it needs to be proportionate. And I think on both of these fronts, the government is a little wobbly. I don't think it will win this.
Well, I agree with you on most things, but not that debate should be left to law. Otherwise, what will happen to us and shows like this? But thank you all for this. I've learned a lot because this is not one of my expertise. So thank you all for joining me on this show, and thank you all for watching this. Thanks.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.